Hey, it's Elizabeth Eleanor Makepeace here, and I'm doing my second day of 365 days on YouTube. I'm telling my magical story about being a conscious creator and all the miracles and weird things that have happened to me in my life. Have you ever had some really funny, bizarre things happen? My whole story is about connecting with my soul's path and wanting to share that with you so that you can also connect in and understand what it's like to be on a soul journey where you're connected to your higher self and you're living in alignment with what it is that you're here to experience from a soul level. Instead of what we do is we separate and we live in this identity that takes us on all this other stuff and distracts us completely from what our whole soul wanted to come and experience here. So if you haven't checked out day one, then jump into subscribe down the bottom here, as they say, hit the notice, the bell, whatever it is. And, you hear people say that all the time, right? Hit the bell, subscribe, and jump in over and check out day one. They're sort of going to be in sequence, but they're not at the same time. So, it doesn't matter if you've missed one, it's all good. And I'd love to share my journey, and I'd love for you to comment in the little box down the bottom to share with me what your journey's been like. And, so that if you've got any questions or you've had some amazing experiences as well, that we can just connect, because that's what life's all about, right? So I think I finished off talking about how I spiritually woke up and what a crazy experience that was. And then I found myself, not very long after that, I found myself in a little group. There was like about 4 or 5 of us um, doing past life regression. Now, this was 7 years of past life regression, and I'm now calling it training because it was past life regression training. When I first came into the group, I was like a clean slate. I had no idea, never read any spiritual books. Maybe I was a little bit interested in spirituality, but it wasn't a big thing for me. I'd just had that spiritual experience where I had woken up because I went to a psychic and had this crazy experience where I physically felt spirit touch me. But I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never heard of Atlantis and Lemuria and Pleiadians and Syrians and all the things that people talk about. I'd never heard of any of it. Never read the Bible, never, just didn't, I wasn't even into history, right? Like the whole thing, I had no concept of any of it, which was actually what my mentor Rhonda absolutely loved about me, because I went in with a lot of innocence, and innocence is and can be your superpower. It's, for me, it's my superpower, because we can get so caught up in our identity that thinks it knows what's going on in life, and it defines things. It defines our world as if it knows the structure. When you can step into your innocence, then you're open to all possibilities. You're open to the field of the quantum field of everything and anything. And so, therefore, you're more likely to connect in with the wisdom that is external to the limitations that we hold on us. So, our conscious and our unconscious, that actually only has a small amount of stored information in it. The rest is available to access. However, we limit ourselves and we restrict that information from coming through because we think we know everything. We've got this, understanding of how life works in the box, and we forget that there's an outside the box energy. So when I moved into this whole process, I was very open to all possibilities and all experiences because I had never had anything like this, but I also didn't not give it any, define it as anything. So I didn't define it as crazy or, not true and all of those things, right? So one of the first experiences, now I actually didn't believe in it. So after saying all of that, I still didn't believe it. I didn't think it was not possible, but I just didn't fully understand it. So I didn't quite believe it. So I was open to the whole experience. And the very first session that I had that really went, there's something in this, was when I came into the session. Now, let me tell you a little bit about how the regressions would go. So I'd lay down, Rhonda would show me how to get out of my body and facilitate me through that process. And then you would come back down to earth into a body and just look around and see what was going on in your environment. So there's one experience I had where I'm a man and I'm in this, my shoes are dirty and I've got scruffy clothes on and I'm, in the middle of a road, or right next to, the gutter. I'm laying in the gutter and I'm just about to, like I'd finished from my life. I didn't want to have anything to do with life anymore. And so I was contemplating leaving the planet, right? My hair was scruffy and dirty and long and, the whole thing, right? And homeless, basically looking. And Rhonda asked, what got you to this place? Why are you here? And so in my energy, I have this image of me being about 7 years old. I'm in a crowded room and I'm 7 years old and I'm trying to share my wisdom. I'm trying to explain that we're all here to love each other and all connected and there's oneness and all the things in very simple terms, because when I first started, I didn't have the language to be able to speak properly. It was all very simple information. So no one would listen to me. So Rhonda actually came in her light body and asked everyone to listen to me, all the adults, right? And I was only this young kid. So all the adults stopped, they listened to what I was saying, and she said, now let's go back and see if anything's shifted in your adult life. And the first thing I noticed was, from a vision point of view, I was wearing a suit. I'm walking down, I'm clean, and I'm walking down the street, and people are respecting me and looking at me with admiration. But I actually physically had this experience where I'm laying in the lounge room at Rhonda's house, and I went, oh my God, my hair is short and clean. I could literally feel it on my head that something had shifted in my auric field. So you can imagine when you have an experience like that, you go, there's something in this, right? I physically felt that. The other thing that sort of came around at the same time, and I had this moment of, okay, there's something really magical about this woman and about this experience. I'm going to stay to check it out. Rhonda had asked me, she rang me up and she said, we've got this portal that we need to open or close. I can't even remember. I was so new to it all and, still, single mum looking after two kids, trying to work out how to live. I was trying to work out my massage, build up my business because I just moved to far north Queensland. So I'm like, I don't know anything about doing that. And she said, it's okay. We just need a certain amount of women, and we've got one guy that's going to be the gatekeeper. And you just have to be there and we'll tell you exactly what to do. So I'm in for anything, right? So I go to this river that's up in far north Queensland is called Mantaka, and actually it's actually in Paul Kelly sings about this area. It's a sacred women's area on the other side of Kuranda in far north Queensland. Beautiful, beautiful place. And it was this river that had a sandbank that went up just slightly, just a slight slope, and it went up onto this grassy area. So Rhonda lays down and she is telling us what she's doing, and we're in a circle around her, and there was a woman there that was drumming, and a guy that was at her she was laying down and he was seated at her head, and he was like the gatekeeper. And then we just had to close our eyes, sit in, cross-legged, and Rhonda was calling in energy, and it would go through her heart chakra and then go through into us, into our heart chakras, and then back up, right? So all I have to do is open my heart and allow this energy to go through, and I've got no idea what I'm doing, right? And so I'm just playing along, being in the game, and she's telling us what she's experiencing as she's talking, and this woman's drumming, doing the drum, and we've just got our eyes closed. So the drum's going, and Rhonda starts talking about the rainbow serpent. And I remember distinctly the woman next to me, actually, maybe she wasn't next to me, but she was drumming and she gasped. She was oh, like this. And I nearly went to open my eyes, and I got this really strong voice in my head say, don't open your eyes. So I listened to myself. That was my higher self telling me what to do. I listened to myself and I didn't open my eyes. So we go through the whole process and get to the end, and everyone finishes, and we all open our eyes, and we all turn to this woman who I won't mention just in case she doesn't want me to mention her. We all turn to this woman and like, why did you gasp? And she said this snake had come from the grass and come into our circle. So it didn't even go straight. It was going to the river. It came on a diagonal into our circle. And as Rhonda spoke about the rainbow serpent, it reared up and it jumped onto her heart chakra and then jumped off. And as it jumped off, it slid over into the water underneath my knee. So I lift my knee and have a look, and here is the snake's track going down into the river. And I know that when I would have opened my eyes would have been exactly when that snake was there. So I'm so glad I listened to myself and didn't open my eyes, right? But you can imagine at that stage, it was like, okay, this is more powerful than what I'm understanding. There's something magical happening here, and I need to learn what this is. So I could see that Rhonda was a very powerful woman. We so basically I did 7 years of training with her, where she was taking me through sessions, and all the other people in the group, as well as people that would come and pay her. And basically she was writing a book. And so it's never been published, but it's a very thick book. I've actually got it here. There was a beautiful cover made by this amazing artist, and it just never got to the point where it was published. But all of my sessions, regressions, are in there, and so are various other people. All the way through the sessions, basically what we were doing is, as you're going through your past lives, you're looking at things that were situations that you could have done better. That's a really good way of putting it, actually. Situations that you could have done better than you did in that session, in that lifetime. And so if you made a choice that wasn't correct for where your soul's path wanted you to be, then those decisions that you made cause what I would call a bump in your system. And so now they're a dysfunctional frequency, or they're a unaligned frequency, out of the harmonics of what your soul wants to really vibrate at a higher frequency. So they're like these little discords that are not quite in alignment with what your soul really wanted. So when you go into, or the way we were doing past lives, is you go into this process where you go through that past life, look at what these disruptions are, and then correct them. Now, this is why I now say I don't believe in past lives, because I did 7 years of past life regression training. However, we are living, when you raise your vibration and you move from third and fourth dimension into fifth dimension and beyond, fifth dimension, you know that we're living as a unified field. And so past lives are not in the past. They are happening right now at some time, or some time in space, in the quantum field in this now moment. So something that happened to you in a past life, for example, the situation where I was that guy and no one would talk to me, not listen to me because I was only 7 years old. I had that experience in this life when I was young. I had a lot of wisdom and no one would listen to me because I was too young. And so that thing kept on playing out in each life until that discord was corrected, and it brought it into alignment. So then now all these alignments happen, and so this is how you raise your vibration. This is how your frequency moves into third, fourth, fifth dimension, sixth dimension, right? Seventh dimension and beyond, because you are now shifting those discords out of the way. And when you do, it's like switching on off a cancer cell. That cell now has the opportunity to go back into its normal pattern and to be in harmony with the rest of the body, right? So that's a great way of putting it. So I had some really interesting regressions with Rhonda, and it didn't take me long before I understood how the whole process worked and how the system worked. And I then was able to start facilitating and doing past life regression as a facilitator myself, which I was the only one in that group that moved into that process. The rest of them, didn't take that up. I don't know why. Maybe, I think mainly because it wasn't their journey, really, right? I had some really amazing experiences through that process. So there was a lot of past lives that happened to move my frequency into a higher dimension. And then once I moved out of that, I did a lot of work in the realms and in the cosmos. So I was actually going through and going to other planets. I've been in UFOs. There's a whole heap of stuff that happened that I will share as I go along. One of the things that happened that I noticed was a pattern, and myself and Rhonda noticed a pattern. I had a lot of experiences where I was someone that, a woman. I'd come into a body, I was a woman and I was pregnant, and I was going to have some sort of Messiah, right? It happened over and over again. And I think after a couple of years, Rhonda said, "Do you realize that you're going to have a child and this child's going to be a Messiah in this life?" And I went, "Yeah, no, not true, right? I'm not taking that on. That is not my journey. I was a single mom, 2 kids. I was all good. Not to have another child, but definitely not to take on this role of a Messiah. I thought it was BS, really." Uh, and it took a little while for her to convince me that this is the case. And I eventually, I looked up on Google. I think I looked it up in a dictionary because there wasn't really Google a lot back then. And I don't even know if Google was around back then, actually. But I do remember I looked it up in a dictionary what Messiah meant, and Messiah means teacher. I'm like, okay, I can handle that because we're all teachers, right? So, that gave me a little bit of leeway, and I went, okay, looks like I'm going to have another child potentially. That means I'm going to have a man in my life, right? So that is an interesting journey because I did eventually meet a man and we got together and I had a child. And I think I'll wait until session 3, day 3, to share that story because that's a whole journey in itself. And I think I want to stay talking to you about the whole experience with Rhonda because I want to talk about past lives and what they entail. And I want to share a couple of things. Some of the things that came through, like I want to share 2 experiences that I had that, you know, 2 experiences that I had were I had a past life, many past lives, as in I went back to this a couple of times as Mary Magdalene. And another one was Tutankhamun, right? Now, you may be new to all of this and reincarnation and past lives. And either way, so many people come down and go, I was Mary Magdalene, I was, Nefertiti, I was blah, blah, blah. And you hear hundreds of people say it. So how is that is a possibility? I want to give you the evidence first of what happened to me, and then I'll share why my understanding of it. So the first thing is I experienced the very first experience I had of being Mary Magdalene. I still get the feeling of it. It almost makes me teary, right? I had this experience and it's a very weird one. I've never heard anyone have this experience before. The session started where I'm an old woman, a hag, like this old crone woman, and I'm in a hut and I'm a medicine woman. And this husband and wife come in with their newborn baby, and they bring this baby to me, and I'm the wise woman that they're bringing this baby to, and I take this baby and I start suckling the baby on my breast. And I said to Rhonda, it's so weird because I've got this like shrunk, wrinkled old breast, and here I am putting this little baby on it. It just feels very weird, right? And then I take the baby and I give it this really hot soup. And I was saying to Rhonda, like, how is this baby taking this hot soup? And through the process, I then give the baby back and they leave. And I end up dying and I reincarnate as Mary Magdalene straight away. Now, what I know of that first experience was I was feeding the baby the wisdom of the mother, right? So the wisdom of the feminine. the old wisdom of the feminine. So it was a representation. It was like a symbol of that. And the soup being too hot was a representation of the masculine, and that he was getting access again, information that was way too much for his age. So that was why the representation was the heat of this soup that he was getting. I then reincarnate as Mary Magdalene, and the first time I see Jesus is I'm walking in, the sort of the desert, and he's on top of this hill, and is Sandy Hill, and there's a few people around him, right? Like maybe 10, 15 people around him listening to what he's got to say. And there's this moment where I'm here and he's up here, and he looks at me and I look at him, and there's energy, this connection that happens between the two of us, where straight away we both know our destiny. We both know that we're destined to meet. We both know what our contract is. Mary Magdalene, in my opinion, you know, I'm not even 100% sure that Jesus and Mary Magdalene are the people that have been given to us in all of the text, but the representation of those and whoever they were, they did this together, the masculine and the feminine. And so there was this beautiful union just in that first moment where they connected and they knew their journey and their story together, right? And it was just the most amazing experience. I just love, the love that comes over me when I think of that every time. I mean, it's been 20 odd years since I've had that, but I have that come back over me every single time. So that was my experience of meeting, like the first time that I was experiencing being Mary Magdalene. Other times I went in, and Rhonda would ask me what was Jesus's relationship with John, or with of course their names were not these names, right? Like you don't have a John and a Paul and a Matthew and all of those things in the Middle East. That's our English version, right? But the representation of these people, and I was able to give her, this relationship, they were completely connected, and he knew that Jesus's journey was what it was, and was completely ready, and was part of the process. Oh, this guy here, he was not really interested, and he had doubts. And I had no physical evidence of this in my physical form as Elizabeth. And I'd get out of the session and she'd go, yep, this is the same information that I've been given from other people. So the way I see it, and I'll just tell you about Tutankhamun as well. I just remember having a session. It wasn't as strong, the connection with myself and Tutankhamun, as it was with Mary Magdalene. With that one, I remember being a kid on a throne, and I'm swinging my legs and I'm like, I want to go and play. I don't want to be here. And Rhonda said to me, asked me some questions, and I was saying, I'm being crowned as a king. I don't think I use the word crown, and I just don't want to be here. I want to play. I don't want to be here. And she's like, well, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm told that I'm Tutankhamun, but I'm just a kid. And she's like, well, Tutankhamun was a kid. And I went, oh, I didn't know that, right? So the things that come through when you're just open and allowing the information from your higher self to be accessed without needing to edit it or to justify it or validate it or understand it. When you allow your higher self wisdom to come through, that's when the purity of it comes through, right? So my understanding is that we are fragments of fragments of fragments of fragments. That whatever the consciousness is, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it Great Spirit, whether you want to call it the divine source, the all that is, whether you want to call it the Big Bang, right? Like the singularity, the focus, every single creation story in all different lands have a similar concept of however it came to be. And so when that energy was a singularity and it decided to split, through that split of duality became masculine and feminine, and then it kept on splitting more and more and more. And so the complexity of this is just astounding and way more intricate than our limited little mind here can comprehend. I have a theory and an understanding that energy in its purest form is has a consciousness, right? So the smallest particle has some form of information and consciousness to it. Whether it's conscious or conscious is a different thing. And thought is one of the purest vibrational consciousnesses there is. So imagine a thought going out. Where does it go? Like when you have a thought, it goes out. It's actioned into the ethers, right? When you have a thought, that thought is now a creation of itself. So my understanding is that Mary Magdalene, as an individual woman, had many thoughts, and through those many thoughts create, and those creations are somehow linked to various particles and parts of her that now I access because I'm a fragment of one aspect of that. And someone over in France has also got another aspect and has a different experience and a different memory of Mary Magdalene than I do, because it's connected to a different holographic experience of that thought that she is at that time. If you understand that, if you can, get your head around that, that is how I understand that there can be hundreds of people that are the same. Queen, Nefertiti, Muhammad, blah, 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 whoever it is. There are so many people that can say that I'm a reincarnation of that same person. And my understanding is because of the fragmented ability for consciousness to be more than just one individual particle as a person. So I went through many, many, many experiences that were really life-changing. And through those 7 years, I had, I can't remember how many different experiences. In fact, I'm thinking I might, as I go along through this process, go back and read some of my regressions, because it's been a very long time, just to remember some of them. And I want to share how, like, one that is completely different, and whether it's true, like I'm getting in some, quantum experience in some dimension, it absolutely is true. I'm getting that from my higher self, but from this dimension, in this reality, it seems very bizarre. But I want to share one of my past lives that made a huge difference because I had a physical experience again and a healing in my uterus. So I had this one experience with a past life where I'm a monkey man or woman. I don't even remember. I just remember I'm a monkey being like Tarzan sort of monkeys, like not primate, but oh, I can't remember exactly, but I remember I'm swinging through the trees, right? Like Tarzan was. And I'm swinging through the trees in this beautiful rainforest. And I drop down into this mud. So I drop down into this mud pile, and I come out, take my foot out of the mud, and I start pulling out this beautiful, white light thread out of my big toe. And it's coming out and it's coming out and it's coming out. And I pull it all the way out. And as it pulls out at the end, all of a sudden I bleed. I just have all this blood come out as a woman, like big clots coming out into the mud. And then I'm human, right? So I think when I dropped down, I was already human. I don't remember having fur on me or, hair on me when I dropped down. This is 20 odd years ago. But I'm scooping up this mud and this blood and I'm smearing it all over my body, right? Now, I find out later that this is DNA that's come out of my toe, and that the DNA is, shifting energy out of my body. So I've got all this mud and blood all over me, and I jump into this water and I become a tropical fish in fresh water, right? So this is how bizarre it can be. And because I was in my total innocence, just allowing it to happen. So I'm this beautiful, like almost like an angel fish, but I had colors. And I'm swimming down and down and down in this freshwater river. And I go down to the bottom of this river, and here is a treasure chest. So I open up this treasure chest, and there's crystals in this chest. And I grow human arms out of, and really thin, like skinny human arms out of this fish. And I open the treasure and I pick up the crystal and I put it into my mouth as a fish. And as I'm laying there with Rhonda, as Elizabeth in the lounge room, I feel the energy go down my throat, into my chest, down into my uterus, and it clears a part of my uterus. Now, I can't even remember if it was left or right side, but it was definitely one side. It might have even been the left side. And it cleared the energy in my uterus when I didn't even know that there was any energy that was blocked, right? I had never had, my moon cycle has always been regular, no big, no pains, nothing unusual. But here I cleared this energy out of my uterus, and I'm like, oh wow, this energy's gone. Now it feels very different. And I how that played out in my life, I don't know, but maybe I would have had something. I ended up with a 15 centimeter fibroid a couple of years later, that so maybe it would have been something else, and I'll tell you about that story in another session. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. And these things that are cleared, you don't know how they were going to play out before when they were stuck. So past lives can actually affect, or multi-dimensional aspects of yourself, because we are in more than one dimension. So multi-dimensional aspects of yourself are right now affecting your vibration and holding you back from living your soul's purpose. And where we're at in consciousness at the moment is all of that starting to shift and change. and we have the ability and the opportunity to clear it really fast, which is very has never been in any other time in history. You know, you think back, my mum was born in 1943. Back then, there was no concept of even personal development, let alone spiritual development, right? They didn't even have how-to books on, guided. I remember her talking about, Dr. Spock. Parent Guide had just come out, was the first book that ever talked about parenting. And it took me ages. I thought she was talking about Dr. Spock from Star Trek, but apparently there was a guy called Dr. Spock. I thought she was making it up, right? But back then, there was no sort of opportunity for intentional healing. And so we are now in a different state, because not only multidimensional aspects of ourselves that are holding us back, but we also have within our DNA, in our bloodline, different things that, like epigenetics proves that we have traumas from our generational history, parents, all the way through, that are holding us back from really living in our truth, in our highest potential, because those things are tethering our soul to the heaviness of being on this planet. So I'm going to leave it there. There's so much more to share. I'm just going to enjoy and just talk for 365 days and see what happens here, right? Is something that I've committed to for myself, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying the journey, and that you're going to play along with me. And if you're going through anything, any sort of spiritual experience, if you're watching this in the future, which you will be, right? Because as soon as when I finish this, then we've got to upload it onto the YouTube and all the things. But, if you're someone that's like 3, 4, or 5 years down the track and you're watching this, there's a reason for it. So I'm just saying hi from the past. And I know that there's a lot coming. There's a lot of information. We're just about to explode on this planet and have some really interesting stuff happening. And so I know that I've been told by my higher self, and others have had the same experience, that it's time for us to share some of the crazy things that have happened to us, so that it's okay and it's normal, and you've got someone to lean on as you go through that process. Just to let you know, who am I right now? I'm Elizabeth Eleanor Makepeace, and I'm a conscious creator. I'm an intuitive empath. And one of the things that I do is a process called recoding. I've been a healer for 26 years, 27 years. But I met my beautiful partner on the beach in a very fairy tale romantic experience. And my last name used to be, my maiden name was Payne, Payne, and his last name is Makepeace. And when you're really connected to your higher self and the soul's path, these are the things that happen, right? It's more than the limitations that the human body and the human mind can understand. It's really living in the magic and miracles of being a multi-dimensional being, living in a multi-dimensional cosmos. And that's where we're heading. So looking forward to sharing the journey with you more, and some more of my story each day. And as I was saying before, hit the subscribe button and press the bell for notifications, and I'll catch you on the next session.